Roulette looks glamorous, but its history hides real scandals. Wheels were biased, balls were manipulated, and insiders bent procedures to tilt outcomes. Tonight we open documented cases, Joseph Jagger's Monte Carlo bias discovery, the Ritz laser timing operation in London, France's cigarette pack radio ball con, and a New Orleans late bet collusion. No myths, no legends, just verifiable events showing how the so-called devil's game was exploited and how casinos fought back. Roulette runs on physics, wheel speed, ball velocity, deceleration, and micro tilt. Any imperfection creates biased sectors. Precise timing lets players predict landing zones. Hidden electronics or magnets can nudge results, and late wagers after no more bets falsify fairness. Casinos responded with wheel rotation, leveling, device screening, non-magnetic balls, surveillance, and tighter procedures. These controls raise the bar, but as technology evolves, so do methods still trying to beat the spin.
Number 1. Monte Carlo and Jagger 1873.
Joseph Hobson Jagger's case is the classic example of exploiting mechanical bias rather than cheating. Around 1881 in Monte Carlo, the Yorkshire textile businessman hired assistants to log thousands of roulette outcomes. Their notebooks showed one wheel produced a cluster of numbers more often than chance would predict. Jagger then bet systematically on that biased group and won large sums over days, reportedly breaking the bank once, the term used when a table's cash reserve was exhausted. Contemporary descriptions say the casino responded by swapping or rotating wheel parts between tables to erase the pattern and tightening leveling and maintenance checks. Jagger returned to England with substantial winnings and invested in property, and his story became gambling folklore because it demonstrated that man-made devices can drift from perfect randomness. Crucially, nothing in the episode involved magnets, electronics, or inside help. It was observation, record keeping, and disciplined betting against a physical imperfection. For modern audiences, the lesson is simple. When a game's outcomes depend on real hardware, tiny biases accumulate into measurable edges. Casinos now rotate equipment, audit wheels, and monitor number distributions because Jagger proved those small biases can be found and exploited by patient, careful data collection.
Number 2. Ritz Laser Case 2004.
The Ritz Club case in London, March 2004, is the best documented modern example of tech-assisted roulette prediction. A three-person team, identified in press reports as Niko Tosa, Nenad Marjanovic, and Livia Polisi, used mobile phones with laser timing capability to capture ball and wheel deceleration. Software on the devices converted those timings into a predicted landing sector moments before the croupier called no more bets. By staking chips to cover that sector at the last possible instant, the trio won about 1.3 million pounds across 2 nights. Security detained them and police opened an investigation, but prosecutors ultimately dropped charges because there was no evidence of physical tampering with casino equipment. In law, measuring open information in the room differed from interfering with the device. The case rattled the industry. If physics and computation can shrink randomness, what safeguards remain? Casinos responded with tighter late bet cutoffs, active device screening at entrances, and closer surveillance of last-second sector betting. The episode remains a landmark because it showed that roulette can be analyzed in real time using consumer electronics, famously blurring the line between ingenious advantage play and unlawful manipulation without touching the wheel or the ball.
Number 3. Deauville Radio Ball 1973.
Accounts from 1973 describe a radio-controlled roulette scheme at Casino Deauville in France involving Monique Laurent, her brother, and her husband. Retellings in later reporting say a small radio transmitter was concealed in a cigarette pack, while a modified roulette ball contained a miniature receiver. At key moments, an accomplice allegedly pressed the hidden switch, subtly influencing the ball's motion so it tended to settle in a preferred sector. Coordinated wagers then targeted that zone. The story attributes roughly $1 million in winnings before unusual hit patterns and behavior drew scrutiny. Investigators reportedly uncovered the ruse, and arrests followed. Whatever the exact technical details, the episode entered casino history as the French cigarette pack scam, an example of low-profile electronics being used to nudge outcomes rather than merely predict them. In its wake, operators introduced random ball swaps, electromagnetic interference checks, and stricter audits of gaming equipment. Because much of the documentation survives in secondary sources, sources and media features rather than primary court dossiers. Narrations of the plot vary in specifics. Even so, press accounts popularized the tale widely and consistently across decades and languages. It remains one of the most cited French casino cheating stories ever.
Number 4, New Orleans Collusion 2025.
A recent insider collusion case in New Orleans shows how procedures, not hardware, can be bent. According to an April 2025 release from the Louisiana State Police Gaming Enforcement Division, a roulette dealer at Caesars Casino, identified as Margaret Lake, and a patron, Ahmad Junius, were arrested after an investigation into theft exceeding $10,000. Authorities allege the dealer permitted the patron to place several late wagers, bets made after the no more bets call, giving him knowledge of the outcome window and an unfair edge. Local coverage reiterated that the method resembles past posting, a classic casino fraud that relies on timing and collusion rather than mechanical manipulation. The case illustrates that even with modern surveillance, human cooperation at the table can defeat fairness if controls lapse. In response, casinos emphasize stricter enforcement of betting cutoffs, enhanced pit supervision, and rapid video review from overhead cameras before payouts. As of the initial announcements, the matter was framed as an active criminal investigation in New Orleans, with arrests and bookings by state authorities. It also served as a public reminder that roulette risks extend beyond biased wheels or electronics to include insider procedure breaches that surveillance must detect quickly.
Number 5, Madrid Bias Wheel Case 1991 to 1995.
Spain's early 1990s bias saga shows advantage play scaled with family discipline. Record producer Gonzalo Garcia Pelayo suspected that heavily used roulette wheels at Casino Gran Madrid might drift from perfect balance. He and his relatives logged tens of thousands of spins, entered the data into a computer, and flagged numbers that appeared with statistically significant frequency. When the team returned to the floor, they staked the favored clusters and, over months, reportedly won more than €1 million. The casino pushed back with bans and legal action, but the fight produced a striking outcome. A Spanish court later ruled the method lawful because the players neither tampered with equipment nor colluded with staff. They simply exploited publicly observable bias. The family's approach became a media phenomenon in Spain and inspired later retellings because it looked less like cheating and more like field science. Casino countermeasures followed: wheel rotation and re-leveling, deeper statistical monitoring of number distributions, and quicker replacement of suspect parts. The Garcia Pelayo story completes the spectrum. From 19th century notebooks to 20th century databases, the same principle applies. When a physical device governs outcomes, small imperfections can compound into a durable edge. It remains roulette's most famous data-driven victory without mechanical interference or collusion. From Monte Carlo's biased wheel to London's laser-timed predictions, from Deauville's radio ball ruse to a New Orleans late-bet collusion, roulette's darkest moments share one truth: the wheel is only as fair as the people and hardware around it. Joseph Jagger proved that mechanical imperfections can be mapped and beaten. The Ritz trio showed physics and computation can compress randomness into a bettable sector. Deauville exposed how concealed electronics can nudge outcomes. New Orleans reminded everyone that procedure, not just machinery, protects fairness. In response, casinos rotate and level wheels, randomize balls, screen for devices, analyze betting patterns, and enforce tighter cutoffs. Yet the allure remains: a spinning halo, a bouncing ball, and the fantasy that luck can be mastered. The lesson is simple and sobering. Chance can be bent, but consequences follow. When the wheel spins, ask yourself, are you watching probability or someone else's plan? History remembers both winners and warnings.